All right, today we have a 2001 Chevy Silverado. We're going to be replacing the fuel pump assembly. The customer's gas gauge has stopped working, and he had it diagnosed at a shop elsewhere. And turns out the fuel level sending unit is bad, and the only way to replace that is to replace the whole fuel pump assembly. So we're going to go ahead and get it up in the air and show you how to replace the fuel pump. Okay, before we start, we need to relieve the fuel pressure out of the system. Easiest way to do that is to remove the fuel pump or the fuel pump relay and then start the vehicle. Looking at the bottom of the fuse and relay cover, you can see here the fuel pump relay is this one right here. So what I'm going to do is pull out this relay and then start the truck and then let it run until the engine cuts off, and that'll mean that it's out of fuel pressure. So with the fuel pump relay removed, I'll go ahead and start the truck. And you'll hear it stall here. There it goes. So that means the fuel pressure is out of the vehicle. Now I'm going to leave this out of the truck until we're all done with the job. So at this point we can go ahead and lift it up in the air. Okay, we're underneath the truck now. Right here is our fuel tank. This is our ultimate goal, is to drop this down. Over here you can see we've got the charcoal canister going to the fuel tank. You can see the lines up here. We've got various lines that we're going to disconnect. All this stuff has to come undone. We're going to start though by undoing the fuel filler neck, which is on the this side of the tank, kind of above the frame. So now first thing we're going to undo is the fuel filler neck going to the tank. This is probably one of the more difficult parts because it's tough to get to. You can see here, this is the filler neck hose, and it runs to the tank, and way up here, unfortunately our camera won't fit up in there so you can't see it, is a hose clamp. So what I'm going to do is reach up in there and loosen the hose clamp with just a flathead screwdriver, and then hopefully the fuel filler neck will come right off. Okay, got the hose clamp loose. I'm going to go ahead and slide it up out of the way. And now we're going to try to pull the fuel filler neck off of there. Well, it's loose, but it should come off the rest of the way when we go to drop the tank. So I'll leave it like that for right now. We might have to go back to it. So our next step, we're going to come back on the other side here. And disconnect. Let's see if this would. I'm going to go ahead and disconnect all the lines going to the top of the tank, just so we don't have any risk of getting one hung up there. This little vapor line, to undo this one, all you do is you squeeze there's two little things on here you squeeze, and then it pulls off and wiggles off. So all I did was squeeze right there. And that one does not go. This one does go up to the top of the tank. This bigger one, let's see. That one's the same type of thing. You just squeeze these outer tabs and that releases it. Now we've got two more lines here. See, 1, 2. I'm going to pop these out of their holder. Alright, so now we're going to undo this line. To undo this one, it's a little bit different. It's got two little white plastic clips. You just squeeze those and then pull the line backwards. and then the line comes off. And this very last one is the same deal. It's got the 2 plastic clips. If they don't want to release, you can push them in, or push the line in, and then squeeze them, and then pull the line back off. And we have a little residual fuel pressure. Even though we emptied the fuel pressure, it still might hold some, as you see. So we'll just give that a minute to drain out. All right, so the fuel residual pressure is fully gone now, so I'm going to go ahead and continue pulling off this line here. All right, and I got gasoline in my eye. In case you ever wondered, gasoline in the eye is about the most painful thing that'll ever happen. All right, right now you're looking on top of the tank. There's 2 electrical plugs going to this fuel pump. I'm going to go ahead and disconnect those. There's just quick releases. You just pull on the quick release and unplug it. You can see our harness is disconnected now. So at this point we've got the fuel lines disconnected, the electrical plugs disconnected, and the fuel filler neck loose. So we're almost there. All we have to do now is to loosen the gas tank straps. All right, our next step, we're going to go ahead and take off one of the gas tank straps. You can see there's a 15mm bolt up here between the frame and the gas tank. There's another one on the back strap here. We're going to go ahead and take one off all the way, and then using 2 people, we will drop the rest of the tank down. So I'm going to go ahead and take this front strap off all the way. Now go ahead and just drop the strap. And then we're going to get it out of its holder and just get it fully out of the way. You can see it just has a hook thing that holds it in place. So we'll set that out of our way. There we go. All right, that's free. All right, we got the fuel filler neck off the rest of the way. We're gonna go ahead and continue taking the strap out, and we're gonna drop the tank. All right, so now we actually have an extra person still. The gas tank is more full than we expected it to be. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna hold this up while he zips out that last bolt. All right, and then we gotta remove that gas tank strap. Just pull it.
Come over on this side, you can see where you'll unhook it over there.
Yes.
Yeah, now drop it down.
There you go.
Okay.
Now, very carefully, we're going to lower the tank.
Mike, grab that filler neck.
Yeah, just kind of pull that.
Spray all over. We'll lower it down and you can pull it out of there.
There we go. All right.
That thing's like 3/4 of the
Watch
way.
yourself. All right. There we go. All right. We got the tank down, and that's the toughest part. So we'll go ahead and change the pump from here. Thanks, guys. All right, now that we've got our tank down, you can see the top of the fuel pump assembly right here. One thing I wanted to note, you may come across certain fuel pumps asking for a 3-digit code. Right here, this one is the TCF code, and that's what it means by that. Just this little sticker here with the 3-digit code on it. And what we're going to do before I take any of this off, I'm just going to clean all this loose dirt and leaves and everything out of here using my air gun. So I'll just clean that up real well. All right, the point of doing that is just to keep loose debris from getting down in the tank when we take off this lock ring. What I'm going to do next is go ahead and disconnect the 3 lines on top of the tank here. Now these clips are the ones that similar to the ones I disconnected before that you couldn't really see. So all I did there was just unclip those. and pull it off. You'll see it here again. And this is another one where you squeeze the two ends. All right, our next step is going to be to disconnect or loosen the lock-in ring on top here. This metal ring right here is what holds the fuel pump down. You can see it's got this plastic piece is just a catch tab. Just push that up out of the way. Now there's a couple ways of doing this. A lot of people use a chisel and a hammer. I'm going to try to do it with a pair of pliers here. All you have to do is get the whole thing to turn counterclockwise. So I'm just going to, there it goes, just like that. I'm going to go ahead and take our lock ring off there. And at this point, we'll go ahead and pull our old fuel pump module out. Just carefully lift the whole thing out. We're going to let it drain for a minute here. All right, so here's our old fuel pump module. This part right here is the fuel level sensor. This is what was wrong with the truck. Now you can probably replace this on its own, but it's one of those jobs that while you've come this far, you may as well change the whole assembly. These fuel pumps are notorious for going bad anyway, so while you got the old one out, may as well put a new one in. Then you know the truck's going to be reliable for quite a while still. The problem lies in these little contacts on the inside of here. As contacts wear down, when the fuel level changes, it's supposed to change where those contacts rest. After a while, those contacts will stop touching the resistive strip there, and it won't send a signal down to the fuel pump gauge. So that's why this goes bad. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and compare this with our new one. We'll go ahead and open that up. All right, so we've got our new fuel pump module here. We got this from Apdty. It's a genuine AC Delco, really good part. Again, on a big job like this, you know, it's worth putting in the better parts. It comes with a new fuel pump seal. Comes with a new harness. We'll get to that in a little bit. I'll show how to install that. And here's our new fuel pump module. We're going to set it next to our old one here. One thing you do have to do is install the float arm. All you have to do that, the float arm, you just line it up in place here, and it snaps in. And that's good. Now you can really see the difference between the fuel pump cylinders. The old one was actually missing the fingers that make the contact were missing. The new one has its fingers down in there, so that was our issue. So everything looks identical, same height, same configuration. The fuel pump seal, you can see on the old one, it sits right at the top of the fuel pump, so we'll go ahead and slide that on. Now the only difference you might be noticing is that the harness, the fuel pump connector harness, is different. A lot of times when needed, they change the design on these things. I don't know if you can see the difference between the old one and the new one. The new one actually has much wider terminals, which allows for more current to flow through easily, and it's just a slightly different design, which some manufacturers think is better. But so we're going to be installing a new harness here too. Now it does come with The butt connectors, if you wanted to use that when we go to install it, I'm going to actually solder them and heat shrink them. I believe that's a little better connection. So at this point, we'll go ahead and drop our fuel pump module into our tank. All right, before we drop the fuel pump module in, you want to make sure this seat on top of the tank where the gasket sits is real clean. So I'm just going around getting it all cleaned up, ready. Then I'm going to put some light lubricant on the seal so that when we go to drop it in, it will just slide right in place. This is optional, but just makes things a little bit easier. So now at this point, all we do is drop it in just like the old one came out. And you'll see it'll only go one way because it's got this tab here that lines up with this indentation on the top of the gas tank. So you'll see when we push it down, that tab lines up right there with that indentation. So what we have to do next is put our locking ring on here. Okay, got it started. Now again, you can either use a hammer and a chisel or pliers or however you want to do it to get this locking ring back in place. You just work it around, and it'll slowly go in place here. You just keep going until that lock tab falls in. Actually, that's as far as it'll go. We'll just... There it goes. All right, so that's installed. Now we have to transfer over our fuel lines. We got to pull the little clips off the old pump. I'll show you that. All right, so we're going to take these clips off and transfer them over to the new pump. The way I've always done it is you just fold these things backwards, and it comes right off. We'll slide that onto the new pump there, and same with this one. And now we just slide our lines on here. What you want to do is make sure the square part of these locking tabs is lined up with the square hole here, and then it'll just snap right in place. This one you just push on, and this one, again, make sure the square is lined up with the square hole, and it snaps in place. Give them a little tug, make sure they're not going anywhere. All right, so the pump is installed. Our next step is to replace the harness. All right, our next step is going to be to replace the harness. You can see the difference between the two here. What I'm going to do is, first of all, cut back this tape on this protective sheathing here and pull that back just to give us some room to work with. And just going to cut away again at the tape here that holds all this together. Just be careful you don't cut through the wires or cut yourself. Okay, now you do not want to touch the 3-pin connector. That is for the fuel tank pressure sensor. That one gets reused. So just so there's no mistake, I'm going to stick that out of the way. I'm just going to tuck it up on top of the frame here. And this next, now you can see the wires we'll be working with. The colors should match. They don't always match. But in this case, they do match. If they don't match, they usually include instructions which tell you how to hook them up. Now here's one little helpful tidbit. You can see, looking at the end of the wires on the new harness, you're always going to have 2 thicker wires and 2 thinner wires. The 2 thick wires are the power and the ground for the fuel pump itself, while the 2 thinner wires are for the fuel level sensor. Sometimes you need to know that info because, believe it or not, sometimes they use 2 black wires in the same harness, and then you have to match up the thick black wire with the thick black wire. But in this case, it's all color-coded, so we just go ahead and swap it out. So what I'll do is I'm going to start by cutting off this old harness. All right, our next step is to strip some of this wire away. You want to take about 3/4 of an inch or so. And do that on our new harness too. All right, so now what I'll do is, I'm going to solder these. At this point, you can use the butt connectors that come with the fuel pump. My personal preference is solder because the connection will never go bad with solder. So I'm going to get my stuff ready to do that. All right, I've got 4 pieces of shrink wrap on the harness here. So once I solder it, I'm going to slide those up and heat shrink them on. And at this point, I just connect each of the wires one by one. Yeah, again, I've stressed it a bunch of times already. I prefer the solder because it's just a permanent connection. It's kind of awkward soldering above your head, but we'll make this work. Okay, so we got our wires all soldered on here. Our next step is going to be to shrink the heat shrink tubing on. And I'm going to do this. Your best bet is if you have a heat gun. Unfortunately, I don't have one with me, so I'm going to really carefully use a lighter, which you do not want the gas tank anywhere near where you're working when you're doing this, for obvious reasons. So be really careful. If you do it this method, have a fire extinguisher nearby. But here goes. Again, I do not recommend this method. Use a heat gun, but you got to get this tightened somehow. So we're going to just heat these up until they shrink down. So we got our heat shrink on. Our harness is fully installed now. I'm going to go ahead and put the plastic sheathing back over the wiring. Just kind of tuck it back in. All right, so we're going to lift the gas tank up into place now. We got 2 people again. All right, watch your heads. All right, I'm going to guide this in place. Okay. All right, and if you could hold it right there for like just a second. What's that? Scoot it. Is this the wrong strap? If it is, Why is that not? There it goes. All right, hold it there just a second, guys. Of course the compressor died. I'm going to try not to hit you in the face. I just need to snug it. All right, let me get this other front one. All right, you let go. Thank you, guys. All right, so we have our tank up in place now. It's not fully tight yet. All right, I'm going to go ahead and tighten down the straps for the fuel tank, and then I will finish hooking everything up. All right, I got the fuel filler neck hose on there. Now I just have to put the clamp back on and tighten it down. All right, our fuel filler neck is on. So now all that's left is to reconnect our electrical connectors. Oh no. All right, I just wanted to show you one mistake I made, which is really easy to make. When I was putting it all back up, I tucked the wiring harness wrong. It's actually going behind the fuel tank strap. So if we were to leave it like this, it won't reach the top of the tank. So I just got to drop this one strap, pull out the wire harness, and then put it back up correctly. So just want to let you see that, and in case you end up making the same mistake. All right, now I'm just going to plug in our wiring, just the reverse of how it came out. I'm going to reach up there and blindly plug it in, but plugs will only go one way, so. All right, our two plugs, our electrical plugs are on. All that's left is to reconnect our lines that we disconnected over here on the side. That's it as far as the fuel pump itself. Anytime you do a fuel pump, though, you want to replace the fuel filter. The fuel filter on this truck is right in front of the fuel tank here, mounted right on the frame. It's this little canister. So I'm going to show you how to replace that real quick. All right, all you have to do on this particular one is to break loose the two fuel lines. You hold the filter with one wrench and then break loose the fuel line with the other. There it goes. And then the threaded fitting will come right out. And the same with the back one. Now what you do is pull the fuel line back and get a little bit of gasoline, but let's see, one of these will come loose. Which one is it? There we go. All right, so just pull one of the fuel lines back. You want to be careful, there's O-rings on the end of these fittings. You don't want to lose those. Once that's pulled back, push your filter forward a little bit, slide the other line up out of your way, and then the filter should just slide out of this housing. So that's our old one. All right, so we got our new fuel filter. Installing it is just the reverse of taking it out. Just slide it into its holder. Line up the one fuel line. We'll go ahead and get that one started. And then pop the other line in. And tighten down the fittings here. All right, fuel filter is replaced, fuel pump is installed. We're just going to drop the truck down now and reinstall our fuel pump relay, and we'll try to start her up. All right, first we're going to reinstall our fuel pump relay. Just pop that back into its holder. Next, we're going to prime the fuel pump by turning the key on and off a few times. And that'll get the fuel pump getting fuel up to the engine. That way it'll fire up when we go to start it. All right, so she's running with that new fuel pump. One thing you want to do is inspect it for leaks. Basically, you just want to look and make sure there's no fuel dripping at all while it's running. And you can see we're nice and dry. Nothing at all leaking from around the tank. It's real good. I think that's just some residual lubricant there. No, so we look good. Let's see if the fuel gauge works. Yep, fuel gauge. You can see it's, you get a direct angle on it. It's about a half tank, which is about where it was when we dropped it down. Before, the fuel gauge was always stuck at 0. So yeah, that shows we fixed the problem. It's working just fine. Fuel pump pumping, truck runs good. So we are all set with this job. All right, so we are all complete now. We appreciate you watching. If you had done this job yourself, you probably saved a few $100s. For one, you're buying the part yourself instead of going through a shop. Also, the labor on these calls for usually a few hours of labor. Doing it yourself, getting a little dirty, you'll save yourself quite a bit of money. So we make these videos hoping you can attempt it on your own. But we appreciate you watching, and remember to check us out on Facebook, Facebook/Apdty, and keep watching us here on YouTube. We'll bring you new videos. Thank you.